Imagine a world contained entirely within a computer system. The ego of man has led to cybernetic superintelligence bent on ultimate supremacy. In this reality, the user fights alongside other programs in virtual scenarios that provide a heightened representation of the real world. Will the user survive, or is humanity destined to fall to their own creation? Welcome to the Matrix. I mean game over. Haha, yes, that is the real box art for this film. Released in 2003, Game Over looks like your standard late-night cable TV or direct-to-DVD film starring
Yasmine, Bleeth
and Walter Koenig. It is a mishmash of concepts, locations, and low-budget special effects loosely bound into an inoffensive but ultimately forgettable film. But dig a little deeper and you will find a fascinating history underpinning this movie. Let's take a trip back to 1991 and the founder of Digital Pictures. This developer was born from the ashes of Hasbro's ill-fated attempt at a console, the Nemo VHS system. When Hasbro's plans unwound, some of the developers working on games for the console split off and founded Digital Pictures. Purchasing the work that had been done on games in the process with a little rejigging, they pivoted and found success by releasing Night Trap for the Mega CD instead. This kickstarted the industry's short-lived fascination with FMV games. Whilst games like Dragon's Lair had existed in the arcades for many years, the proliferation of consumer CD-ROM technology had enabled players to experience these sorts of games from the comfort of their own homes, and with Night Trap under their belts, Digital Pictures was seen as the developer leading the way for the new genre. The following years would see a plethora of FMV games across several different consoles. Digital Pictures spread their wings widely, creating games with horror themes, sport themes, and even Marky Mark themes.
Hey yo, what's up? This is me, Marky Mark, my man HB, and you're chilling on Team Vit.
For a while, it seemed like this was a developer with their finger squarely on the pulse and a bright future ahead of them. Then, only a few years later, it became clear that the FMV revolution was not to be. The problem was that FMV games were inherently limited as to what gameplay opportunities they could offer players. The games looked realistic, but were often extremely linear experiences. In contrast, the 32-bit generation had brought with it games featuring 3D gameplay and large play areas, offering a sense of freedom that FMV games just simply couldn't match. Digital Pictures saw the writing on the wall and decided to push in all of their chips. They conceived of an ambitious mix of computer-generated backgrounds with FMV elements, blending the types of games they had seen success with previously with the more emergent gameplay of the competition. And with that, Maximum Surge was announced with a planned release in 1996. Sparing no excuse, the FMV sequences were filmed in California. The game was set to follow your character, an anonymous soldier, as they attempted to foil a villain named Drexel, who is trying to take over the world by replacing humans with cyborgs. Gripping stuff. Unlike many FMV games of the era, a lot of the scenes for Maximum Surge were shot on a green screen to allow the computer-generated environments to be added in later. The actors were enthusiastic about the project, and when asked her thoughts about starring in Maximum Surge,
Yasmine
told EA Online,
Maximum Surge was a completely new experience for me. It was great to get tough and gritty. The whole concept of CD-ROM is still mind-blowing to me.
Maximum Surge was a big project intended for release on PC, Mac, PlayStation and Saturn. The project seemingly made it quite far into development with a playable demo actually released for the PC. Sadly, it was not to be. The rising costs of game development matched with the declining market of FMV titles dealt the studio a killing blow. Without the resources to complete their magnum opus, Digital Pictures closed in 1996 and Maximum Surge was cancelled. cancelled. The story wasn't over though. After Digital Pictures went under, there was a lot of footage that had already been shot for Maximum Surge. Rather than let it go to waste, it was picked up by a collection of production houses and turned into a film, known in most cases as Game Over. The film deviates from the game's initial narrative. This time the enemy is a rogue supercomputer and the hero is a hacker. The story takes place in a variety of virtual environments with
Yasmine Bleeth
recast slightly as a resistance program called Joe. The footage shot for Maximum Surge is used in the virtual scenes, mixed with some additional footage from other Digital Pictures titles. Yes, footage from Quarterback Attack with Mike Ditka can also be found in Game Over. Gotta squeeze as much out of those FMV sequences as possible, right?
That's Elaine, help!
The dude is literally getting beaten up by Sega/Mega CD games. Not too far off reality then, eh? At least he didn't have to play Crisscross Make My Video.
You still don't have a Sega CD?
The storyline is stitched together by scenes set outside of the virtual world. These scenes were all done specifically for the movie and as a result were shot with more modern equipment than the FMV scenes from the games, and there is an obvious difference in visual quality between the sequences set in the real world and those set in the virtual world. Let's be real, Game Over is a terrible movie and only exists to try and claw back a little bit of profit from the FMV scenes that had already been filmed. It is interesting to see exactly how the producers managed to put together such a desperate set of scenarios into something resembling a coherent narrative, but this novelty is really all this film has going for it. One interesting note to finish up on is that the rights for Maximum Surge have supposedly been acquired by Flash Film Works. They had worked on special effects and environments for the game, as well as when it was being shot as a TV show after the closure of Digital Pictures. Their website states,
Flash Filmworks has reacquired rights to the game, with the intention of releasing it for newer game systems.
So, hey, you never know.